To talk about the ending of Thunderbolts, we first need to understand its story. So if you've already seen the Thunderbolts movie, great, and if not, I'd suggest you leave right now, or else the spoilers might mess with your head. The story begins with Yelena Belova, who causes chaos at a lab in Malaysia owned by the Oxex Corporation. She's there to destroy evidence, and it's Val who sent her on this mission because impeachment proceedings had begun against Val. Her illegal operations were starting to come to light, and she needed to cover her tracks. That's why she sends her secret team to wipe out the evidence. Then, she sends them to a remote compound with separate targets. When all the members arrive there and start attacking each other, it becomes clear that Val actually wants to eliminate them too, because they're the ones who destroyed the evidence and could testify against her. A fight breaks out between Yelena, John Walker, Ghost, and Taskmaster. In the middle of the chaos, a pod door opens, and tension spikes when Ghost kills Taskmaster. Yelena immediately senses something's off and asks whether Val sent them all there. Everyone says yes, except for Bob, who doesn't even remember how he got there. In fact, they're all wondering how a regular civilian like Bob ended up in the compound. Meanwhile, at Avengers Tower, Val tries to manipulate everyone into siding with her to stop the impeachment. But Bucky, now a congressman, confronts Mel and explains the importance of making the right decision. He says that while he was once under Hydra's control, Mel is fully aware of her actions and needs to side with the right people. Therefore, Mel must support the impeachment against Val. Mel refuses and instead goes to report to Val that everyone has arrived at the compound. In response, Val gives the command to blow up the compound. However, the team somehow escapes. During their escape, Yelena touches Bob, and we're shown her greatest guilt, her first Red Room mission, where she lured an innocent girl to be killed. That's when we understand that touching Bob brings out your deepest guilt. John Walker accidentally touches Bob too and enters a guilt-ridden phase, where he faces his own reality. His family broke apart because of his obsession with becoming a hero. He ignored the emotions of his wife and child, which turned him into a miserable man, and eventually, they left him. As the team is planning their escape, Val learns they're trying to unite and form a team. So, she sends her squad to kill them. But the driver turns out to be Red Guardian, who overhears everything and goes to save them. Val is shocked to discover that Bob is the sole survivor of the Bob Centra project. She sees this as an opportunity to fix her political mess by presenting Bob as a savior and thus saving her career. So, she instructs her guards to use non-lethal force. Taking advantage of this, the group almost escapes, but the guards stop them, saying they can't let anyone go unless Bob, John, Ghost, and Yelena are either captured or killed. Seeing the situation worsen, Bob sacrifices himself. He pulls out a gun and starts shooting, prompting the agents to open fire on him. He collapses, and everyone assumes he's dead. Yelena, John, and Ghost use this moment to escape. But a few seconds later, Bob gets up, unharmed. Even when they shoot him again, nothing happens. This time, he levitates into the sky and then passes out. When he falls back to the ground, the shockwave is so powerful that Yelena's vehicle flips over. Val immediately takes Bob back to Avengers Tower, which she now calls the Watchtower. The rest of the team, Yelena, Ghost, and John, escape with Red Guardian. On the way, Red Guardian talks about forming a team. Yelena mentions the name of her childhood team, which had a long name with something like Thunder in it, and thus, a new chapter begins under the name Thunderbolts. For Yelena, Bob was still a hero, not the monster he saw in himself. After their conversation, Yelena realizes that while the past cannot be changed, her actions moving forward can create something good. But just then, chaos erupts again. The void returns and begins pulling people into its darkness, literally making them disappear. Amidst this turmoil stands the Thunderbolts team, once seen as monsters by the world, now slowly becoming heroes in the eyes of the public. Yet, against the darkness of the void, they seem powerless. Everyone begins to run, except Yelena, because in the void, she sees a reflection of herself, a broken soul being hollowed out from within. Without hesitation, she walks into that darkness. In the shadow dimension, she confronts every regret, guilt, and identity crisis of her past. The film turns into an existential therapy session, emphasizing that one must accept their past rather than run from it, and build a future upon that acceptance. She overcomes her worst fears and reaches Bob. She tells him that their past does not define them, and that sometimes, when we fail to see our own worth, we need people who can remind us, especially during our lowest moments. While the past may not change, having that support makes it easier to live. Meanwhile, John warns that in the shadow, one must face their worst fears. Hearing this, the others rush to help Yelena. Courage begins to rise in Bob, which angers the Void, and it starts attacking them. But just then, the Thunderbolts arrive and save them. They journey through Bob's darkest memories, helping him endure and reach his core. They eventually arrive at the same Elation office Yelena once destroyed. The Void appears again, confronts them, restrains the others, and begins verbally assaulting Bob. Yelena and the others motivate him, and Bob rises to fight the Void. As he fights, all his anger, pain, and guilt start to transform him into the Void itself. It's a visually powerful moment. Bob fights the Void, while its darkness begins consuming him from the inside. His rage runs so deep that he starts losing control. Yelena and the others witness this, and they embrace him from behind, telling him he's not alone, that they're with him. Bob breaks down emotionally, but accepts everything, causing the darkness to disappear. The Void is defeated and vanishes. Sometimes, the darkness is so overwhelming that we need not just courage, but people who remind us we're more than our past. Those who hold our hand when we forget who we are. For Bob, that hand was Yelena's and the Thunderbolts. They didn't tell him to forget the pain or belittle it. They told him that despite the pain, he is still human and capable of doing good. That is true life. When you can embrace your past and say, "You're a part of me, but not the end of me." Because if you bury your wounds, they will infect your future. But if you accept them, those wounds will heal, not disappear, but turn into scars, and those scars will shape you into someone new. That's exactly what we see in the movie. When Bob defeats the Void, he doesn't even remember what happened. It all becomes a blur. Then comes the film's boldest twist. When the Thunderbolts go to expose Val, she turns the tables. She presents them in front of a press conference and claims that everything was her plan, orchestrated to prepare for a massive threat. And when the threat arrived, she unleashed her new Avengers. In front of the public, she declares them the new Avengers, just like the Secret Avengers or Dark Avengers in the comics. Here, Val secures her political position and even escapes impeachment. The team knows they were used. But this time, they also have power, and that power is public trust and political leverage. And this is the real theme of the story: redemption, self-worth, and standing up for oneself against a broken system. Each character, especially Bob and Belova, fights their past, embraces it, and walks on a new path. The name Thunderbolts becomes more than a label. It becomes a rebellion against power, against manipulation, so they can earn a new identity, which they ultimately do as the new Avengers. And that's when we also hear the Avengers theme, but with a bit of distortion, because these people are not as perfect as the real or original Avengers were. Bob was an addict, a tortured soul whose pain was so deep he literally became a threat. His darkness wasn't punched away, it was understood. Yelena, whose identity was always defined by others, finally accepts herself. Bucky and John Walker had already dealt with their pasts. Bucky found healing through Shuri, Ava got help from Janet, and Walker faced the consequences of his anger and accepted them. That's why they were able to exist in the Void peacefully. As for our Red Guardian, he had recovered quite a lot thanks to his jolly attitude, so it didn't take him much time to reach Yelena emotionally. As for Taskmaster, killing her off early on was, in my opinion, the best decision. Because when her MCU backstory was already weak, sidelining her rather than trying to fix it was better. If Taskmaster had a bigger role here, then maybe this film would have looked more like Black Widow 2 than Thunderbolts. In the end credit scene, we see a funny marketplace scene involving Red Guardian. And in the second post-credit scene, we see the Thunderbolts sitting inside the Watchtower discussing how Sam has also formed a new team, which he named the New Avengers. And the public is supporting him, not them. But then a spacecraft is seen approaching Earth, and the people at the Watchtower are alerted to this threat. They see the spacecraft, and written on it is 4, which means it's the Fantastic Four, now arriving on the main MCU Earth. Now, why are they here? Has their world been destroyed? All of that will be covered in our post-credit breakdown. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Now after Thunderbolts, a new phase is entering the MCU, where not perfect heroes, but broken soul saviors will rise. And technically, this will continue into Doomsday, because Doctor Doom 2 is going to be a broken soul. So you can see why these people were placed in Avengers, Doomsday, which we'll also talk about in an upcoming video. If you don't want to miss that, be sure to subscribe. And also tell us in the comments how you liked today's ending explanation video. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned.